it's Alex, the Bookubus. Today I'm going to be talking about everything I read in June, and I had a really good reading month. There were two in particular that were my favourites of the month, so I'm going to talk about them first. And they were both 4.5-star reads for me, so that's quite exciting. And one of them was actually the first book I picked up in the month, and that is Letters to the Purple Satin Killer by Joshua Chaplinsky. This comes out in August, I believe it's August 6th. This is being published by Clash Books, and this copy was sent to me for review. And the concept for this book is that it is made up of letters written to a serial killer. So these letters are coming from various different people for various different reasons. Some of them are victims, some of them are fans, some of them want to save him, some of them want to rant at him. I thought this was such an interesting concept, and when I was offered it for review, I jumped at the chance. But there was part of me that thought, can it actually live up to the great concept? And it really, really did. I was really excited to read this book, but I did wonder if the gimmick of letters would get old after a while, but it really didn't, at least for me. I could have read a book twice as long, in fact, filled with these kind of letters. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was just so well written. The characters that are writing to this guy were so well observed. Some of them are, satirical, some of them are humorous. There were times when I laughed out loud reading this book, including on the bus, like a complete weirdo. And there were also times that were really hard-hitting and emotional, disturbing, and yeah, it just made me think about a lot of things, including mortality. And yeah, were really thought-provoking in certain ways. So it really had a wide range of elements going on here, and all of it just really, really well done. And the interesting thing is we don't hear from the serial killer at all throughout this book, yet we do get to know him in certain ways through learning about his crimes and some of his history, and yeah, the way that other people interact with him kind of sheds some light on maybe who he is, but maybe not as well. So yeah, this was just so interesting. If the concept sounds interesting to you, then I highly, highly recommend checking this one out. I loved it, and I rated it 4.5 stars, and it is definitely going to be on my favourites of the year. My other favourite was a short story collection, and this is Cut to Care by Aaron Dries. This is a collection of little hurts, and oh my god, this was such a gut punch of a short story collection. The emotions here, he has such an incredible way with words and in making these feelings and emotions that the various characters are going through just so palpable. And there are also times when it gets like physically and viscerally gruesome as well. But yeah, I was really impressed with the way that he writes all of these really unique and interesting characters. We've got a lot of really original concepts and storylines, or ones that just have a twist on maybe something more familiar. And yeah, just this was emotional, definitely. You could just feel it in your gut the whole way through. So as with most short story collections, it's hard to say too much about it because they're short stories, so it's hard to give away like too much plot. But please check this out. Like, I really can't recommend it highly enough. I absolutely love this. I definitely need to read more of his work. And I did have the pleasure of meeting him at last year's StokerCon, and he was the nicest person. Like, oh my god. Like, yeah, super cool, super nice. It was an absolute pleasure to hang out with him. And I've been meaning to pick this up since then, and I don't know how this much time has passed, but yeah, here we are. Better late than never, and this was another 4.5-star read for me. The stories in here are so strong, and I would definitely recommend you check his work out if you haven't before. Okay, so moving on to the other books that I read in the month. I read The Safety of Unknown Cities by Lucy Taylor. This is an extreme horror novel, and it originally came out in the 90s, I believe 1995. This is about a female character who loves to travel and experience new things, a lot of sexual things, and yeah, the content here is very sexual. It is also very gory and gruesome, and there are probably some triggers for some people, so you might want to look that up before diving in if it still sounds interesting to you. But yeah, this book is wild. It goes to some crazy places. So yeah, it's about this woman, and she hears about this place called the City, and she's heard, you know, bits and pieces here and there, but she doesn't know how to get there. But because she is always, you know, searching for the next thrill, she is trying to track it down. And this place is known for being just complete, you know, sex, debauchery, wild shit going on all the time. And she wants to go there. And alongside this, we are also following a character who is an ex-boyfriend of hers, and he also happens to be a serial killer, and he is actually trying to track her down. So yeah, these two storylines of course converge at some point, and yeah, this one was an absolutely wild ride. Definitely not for the faint of heart, I guess. It definitely has that 90s edge to it, that kind of grunginess, that grittiness, that edginess that was oh so 90s. And yeah, this was a really fun time. It did also, I want to say, have more to it than just the extreme content. It does have something to say about these characters and people in general, and yeah, trauma and things like that. So I thought that was really interesting and well done. And yeah, this is my first time reading Lucy Taylor. I would definitely read more, and I would highly recommend this one if you haven't read it. If any of that sounds interesting to you, I gave it 4 stars, and I'm really glad I checked it out. I also read Joyride by Stephen Crye. This one came out in the 80s, and it is a slasher novel. Joyride is one that is out of print, it's hard to find, copies online go for crazy amounts. I've had it in my eBay watch list for ages, like just in the hopes that a cheap one might come up one day, but it never has. And I have to shout out Andrew at It Came From The Page, because he mentioned it in a video a little while ago and said that it was actually available on the Internet Archive. So I decided to jump on that because it's one I've been wanting to read for ages, and I'm really glad I checked it out. This was another wild one, but in a different way. Yeah, definitely strong slasher vibes. It was a lot of fun, and I had never read anything on the Internet Archive before. It wasn't my favourite reading experience because you're literally just reading like scans of the pages on your phone, and you can only check it out for like an hour at a time. It was kind of weird, but you know, I made it work. So this one is about a group of friends who go to a cemetery one night in order to party, as you do. And while they're out there, they start getting picked off one by one by a crazy serial killer. So yeah, classic setup, definitely some Friday the 13th and The Burning vibes. Even though it's set in a cemetery rather than a summer camp, there are, yeah, some things that reminded me of those movies. And I will say, near the beginning, there is an animal death, and it's really nasty. I did not enjoy reading that at all. So heads up for that. After that though, it's just these people getting killed, which of course is absolutely fine. But yeah, this was a fun romp. We do have some flashbacks, and we learn more about our serial killer and why he's doing what he is doing. I thought that was really interesting, and it does make you sympathise with him. But yeah, crazy stuff happens, people get killed left, right and centre by various methods, and it was just a really fun time. So if you get a chance to give this one a read, I would definitely recommend it. I gave this one 4 stars. I also read the Forbidden Game trilogy, which came out in the point horror series in the 90s. This is by L.J. Smith, who is maybe better known for the Vampire Diaries series, which was, you know, turned into a quite long-running TV show. But yeah, the Forbidden Game is one that I definitely remember having the first 2 books back in the day. I probably at least read the first one, but I really didn't remember anything about it. And I think I did read this one, or reread it rather, like a handful of years ago, but it didn't really stick with me. I don't remember much about it. So since I'm working my way through the last few point horror books that I have yet to read or reread, I really wanted to get to this trilogy. And I'm really glad I did, because I really enjoyed it. So the first book is The Hunter, and it's about a group of friends, and one of them is trying to find something fun, like a board game or something, that she and her friends can play at her boyfriend's birthday party. And she stumbles upon this strange store and this strange guy called Julian who is working there. He's very handsome and mysterious, and he sells her this very unusual game. And when a group of them get together that evening to play it, they find that the stakes are very high, and if you die in the game, you die in real life. And they are basically walking their way through a house, and each of them has to face their fears within this creepy house. And Julian is there, ever watchful, rather Jareth from Labyrinth-like. It definitely seemed like it was quite heavily inspired by Labyrinth, because we have this love interest between our main character Jenny and this mysterious guy Julian. And overall, I did enjoy this one. It was actually my least favourite of the trilogy, interestingly enough. I did enjoy it, it wasn't bad. I gave it 3.5 stars, but I did think books 2 and 3 were actually even better than this one. So I am really glad I read them. And yeah, the second book is The Chase, and the third book is The Kill. They all have these incredible covers, and I won't say too much about books 2 and 3 because that would spoil things, but I really liked the direction that it took, and I actually just felt like in books 2 and 3 the danger was just a bit more like believable, and a bit more tangible in a way that the first one didn't quite give me, if that makes sense. And yeah, I think just getting to know the characters a bit better maybe, and yeah, this relationship with this guy Julian, as things progress, kind of, yeah, had an interesting trajectory. So yeah, this one is more of a maybe dark fantasy-esque horror thriller type situation. But yeah, I'm really glad I revisited this one. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, like I said, I'd given book 1 3.5 stars, and then I gave books 2 and 3 4 stars each. So yeah, overall it was a really good time, and emotional too at times. And yeah, just some of the things that they have to go through were really interesting. Just yeah, the way that it was written, I really enjoyed. And book 3, some of it takes place at a carnival, which was a really cool setting. So yeah, this was a thoroughly good time. If you are a fan of vintage YA and you haven't read this trilogy, then I would definitely recommend you check it out. Okay, I read another extreme horror novel. This one probably a bit more familiar to some of you than The Safety of Unknown Cities, which I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about, whereas This Summer I Died by Ryan C. Thomas always seems to come up on extreme horror, disturbing horror type of lists. And this copy was actually very kindly gifted to me by Kelsey at Slime and Slashes. So thank you so much, Kelsey, for sending this my way. It's one I've been curious to read for ages. So yeah, I'm really glad I got a chance to check it out. I'd been waiting for the summertime to do so. So I figured, yeah, June was a good time to dive into it. And this is about two friends. I think they're like 19, 20, that kind of age. And one of them, our main character, has moved away for college, but he's coming back for the summer and is really looking forward to just hanging out with his best mate, who he hasn't seen in a while. And one day they go out to the woods and they hear some screaming and decide to investigate. And yeah, they are people that are in the wrong place at the wrong time. And they are kidnapped by a crazy dude who inflicts a bunch of torture on them. It is definitely an extreme horror novel. It's very gory and gruesome and violent. And yeah, some of it is against women. So heads up for that. I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was really good. I think his writing style was very easy to get into, and the way that it's set up at the beginning, learning about these two characters and their friendship, and you know, they have a lot of bro type banter between them, which, you know, I mean, at times is a little dated because this did come out, let's see, like, yeah, about 10 years ago. But you know, still kind of made them somewhat endearing, and just kind of like people that you can relate to in a certain way, I guess. And then, yeah, when things go horribly wrong for them, of course, you do feel for them. This one was very tense and a kind of wild, bloody, violent ride, basically. Yeah, if that sounds like your cup of tea and you don't mind things getting into extreme territory, then I would recommend it. I'm glad I checked this one out, and I gave it 4 stars. And then to finish the month off with something completely different, I picked up a Goosebumps book. This is Ghost Beach by R.L. Stine, and I went with this one in particular because it was the pick for Kelly, a Kelly Hooked on Books, her Summer of Stine book club. And this is actually July's pick, but I have Jello July going on, and my TBR for that is already very ambitious. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to squeeze anything else into July. And I had a couple of days left at the end of June. So that was the perfect time to squeeze in a Goosebumps book at that point. This is about a young brother and sister. They go to visit their cousins for the summer. They're quite elderly cousins though. And so, you know, the two of them kind of generally go out exploring during the day. They meet a few other kids in the area, and there is a beach involved. There is a cemetery by the beach, and there is also a cave, and apparently the cave is inhabited by a ghost. So yeah, that's probably all to say about the plot here. And it was a fun read, you know, classic Goosebumps kind of thing. Wasn't my favourite Goosebumps, but definitely wasn't a bad one either. I did enjoy it. I don't think it quite lived up to the amazing cover, but you know, it is pretty incredible, so that would be hard to beat. But it was a fun, quick read. I enjoyed it, and I gave it 3 stars. So that was everything I read in June. Like I said, I had a really good reading month. Please let me know if you've read any of these, because I would love to hear your thoughts on them. And yeah, let me know what you read in June, if you had any particular favourites or anything that you would recommend. I would love to hear about that. Thank you ever so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully I will see you again in my next video. Bye!